Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the CynrGI Culture Community. With me today, I have Maryann DiBenedetti, who is the HR manager and administrative manager of Felton Incorporated in Londonderry, New Hampshire. After many years in the HR community, I saw that the past 2 years is an opportunity to get like-minded HR professionals together for a real discussion about what is really like in today's landscape, how the HR profession has changed, where the culture of the community has been known to make or break it with their employees. And these past 2 years have certainly put that to the test, and I think we've all had to pivot. I'd like to thank Maryann for joining me today. Maryann, thank you for joining.
My pleasure. Good morning, Ann.
Thank you. So, Maryann, how would you say the Felton culture looks today compared to 2 years ago?
I would say very different in light of the pandemic. It has really, it has had such an effect on the business on a whole, and then also our ability to attract candidates, to attract some talent. At the same time, continuing to motivate, the people that we have, that we rely on, that we value so much on our production floor. Because everybody is quite stressed. There's just not enough help to go around. And, of course, that's going to have an impact on the people that you have. So it really has been a challenge in the last 2 years due to the pandemic. And I see that as being, some of the biggest challenges for us as a manufacturing firm.
So you mentioned attracting new employees. So what would you say is the biggest difference in recruiting now, post-pandemic, compared to the pre-pandemic? What would you see as the biggest challenge that you're seeing with your company in doing the recruiting?
I think one of the biggest challenges is just finding, good quality candidates that are actually interested in coming back into the workforce. I think that there has been some hesitation out there by some individuals due to the pandemic, and even though we'd like to consider that it is currently over, we know that unfortunately it isn't. And so we still see, again, there's just a very small pool of candidates, and there's so many companies like ours out there vying for, any help that we can get.
And that's actually something that's really amazing to me, because I know in speaking with you and the president of Felton, you had mentioned that larger corporations that are in your area, that I don't want to say were not otherwise interested in the candidates that you have at your company, but they're now offering much bigger financial incentives for people to come to their companies. Do you find that that is impacting the competition of you being able to compete?
Most definitely.
Okay.
It definitely is having an impact. It's very challenging for us because we can't compete with some of those bigger companies. I mean, right in our particular area, we have UPS down the street. Not far from our facility, we have GE. I mean, they have, the ability to not only pay, large sign-on bonuses, but even with respect to benefits. I mean, it's very hard for us to be able to compete with companies of that size. So, those are some of the challenges, again, that companies like ours, whether you'd call it small or mid-size, are really having these days.
And would you say that that also impacts the retention? Because I do know that Felton has a long history of having employees that have stayed for many, many years, which is unheard of prior to the pandemic, because I think the average worker stays at a company 2 to 5 years, and you seem to have a lot of long-standing employees. Are you seeing the same impact on retention of long-standing employees with what's given and going on in the marketplace?
We do, and especially this past year, we have lost a great many of our long-term employees because there's been some lucrative offers. Companies are just out there offering wages that, again, we just can't compete with. And we have lost even some long-term people for that very reason.
Okay.
So, and you can't blame them. I mean, if you're being offered, in excess of 20,000 plus increase in annual salary, I mean, it's not likely that many people are going to turn that down, regardless of your culture and, you know, how much you work to support your employees and make sure that they realize how much you value them. I mean, when it comes down to it, unfortunately, sometimes those offers are hard to pass up, and we've lost a great many people this year as a result.
So I know in just speaking with you, the recruiting and the retention has drastically changed in the last 2 years. Do you point to any positive impact that you've seen internally at Felton or just in HR related in the last 2 years that you can take off of what's going on?
That's a really very good question, and probably something that I'd have to give a little bit more thought to before answering.
Mm-hmm.
But we've tried so many different things. You know, even now we have just recently developed a referral program, and we just launched that last week. And we're hoping that maybe some of our employees, especially long-term production staff employees, and we have quite a few of them, as you mentioned earlier, and we have people that have been here 20 years and more. So we're hoping that they may know somebody that's looking for not just the money, you know, but to work for a good, stable company that offers, you know, a good, generous, in my opinion, benefit package, you know, well-rounded, and really a very positive culture here at Felton, and one that, you know, we really do obviously try to show our appreciation for our employees. It's so important. So we're hoping that this new referral program might generate some interest in candidates that might be out there looking for a good opportunity.
Okay. So that's good. So you did add a referral program. Are there any other positive kind of changes that you've made in lieu of what's been going on with retention and recruiting?
You know, and it's just, again, it really has been challenging. We've been trying to, you know, put our thoughts together on what we could do, you know, how we can compete in this marketplace right now, you know, what more we can do.
Okay. And I think one of the positives is part of the Synergy Culture community is trying to get HR professionals together to kind of bounce ideas off of. So I do appreciate you taking this interview today and just the discussion about what your challenge is for recruiting and retention, as well as, you know, implementing, you know, an employee referral program to maybe incentivize not only current employees, but to attract future employees is a positive spin on this. And I guess the last thing I would ask, because given your long-standing history as an HR professional, is what advice would you give to another HR professional today who may be struggling with the change in their culture based off of what's been going on?
You know, again, I think the most important thing is to just stay connected with your employees. I know personally, I try to go out there on that production floor in particular every day to just touch base with people, to say hello, see if they have, you know, any needs or concerns, to always tell them how much we appreciate them. I do it every day. And it's one of the reasons why I was a little late to this interview, Ann. You'll have to make my apologies.
And again, I appreciate your time. Yes, and I can attest to that.
I think it's so important to, you need to stay connected with everybody. You need to, you know, it just can't be once in a while. I think it's important that people know how important they are to, you know, the company as a whole.
And I think, too, you've got that benefit of being a manufacturing company that the majority of your employees are on site. So you have that ability to stay in touch. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were more of a remote workforce, you would probably suggest the same thing. Because even more so, people who are working from home need to know that they're just as important as the people that are in the office every day doing some of the things that can't be done from home.
You're absolutely right, and we did strategize about that during the pandemic when we did have a great many of our staff working remotely. But as you said, again, all the production staff, I mean, Felton never shut down its doors, and we were considered an essential employer. Even changed, you know, a couple of business models out there so that we were manufacturing shields and things like that, and you know, our people were going. I mean, they were here every day. They were so dedicated. And at the same time, as you mentioned, all of the staff that was working remotely, you had to find a way to keep them, motivated and keep them engaged. And so that was a bit of a challenge as well. But we have this platform called Teams. And we just made it our business to make sure that we set up like meetings, weekly meetings, and things of that nature, just to make people feel like they were still connected, even though they were working remotely.
That's wonderful. Well, I can test with my partnership with you over the years. The culture does start at the top. So your executive team is very cognizant of how important the employees are. And even though you are seeing some struggles with recruiting and retention given post-pandemic, and hopefully it is post-pandemic, I think that you didn't have as much of an exodus as maybe other companies, given the culture that starts at the top and trying to pivot with every change that's come on in the last 2 years. So I thank you for taking the time to do this interview with me today. I look forward to your participation in the Synergy Culture community. And then hopefully we'll be able to talk again and see where everything is with Felton in the next 6 to 12 months. So I appreciate your time today, Maryann, and have a wonderful holiday season.